We're 100 days away from kickoff of the National Football League. And you know what network it goes on. Well, it's NBC. Cowboys and Eagles just 100 days away, and we will have everything covered up to that point here on the Waiting All Day for Sunday Night podcast. Hello, everybody. I'm Chase Younts, joined alongside me, Alex Frank. Been away for a minute. My computer decided to take a couple of sick days and then add a couple of sick days on, and they just wanted to round it out with a few more after that. So we're back. Everything's good, ready to go, and I'm excited to be back on the program. Alex, what's going on with you?
Chase, it's good to see you. The Knicks have life, so that's good for me. At the time that you are listening to this, the viewers, the audience, the listeners, the series could be tied. So it is. I tell you, this time of year in sports is so underrated. You got all these championship events happening. I mean, golf has been pretty fun to watch, but you know what we're waiting all summer for.
Waiting all summer, waiting all year, and waiting all day for Sunday night. And this is the episode that pretty much defines why we started this when it comes to, if we're not talking about the game that just happened or is about to happen, we're going to talk about all the games that are going to happen because they've been scheduled. They've been put a date, a time, a thoughtful picture as to what it might look like a little bit, you know? So here's the thing. We're going to go on ahead.
We don't even know what it is.
We don't. And that's, game 272. And that has, and obviously the Peacock exclusive game. We don't know that one yet too. But I mean, and the funny thing is, game 272, it has done numbers at the box office the last 4 years that it's been introduced. I mean, we talked about it before with Chargers Raiders, and then you go Lions Packers, and then you got the AFC East Championship with the Bills and the Dolphins. And then this past year, I know obviously the Lions handled the Vikings, but it was the biggest matchup in SNF history, the biggest matchup in NFL history in the regular season. So, game 272 has done box office numbers, but we'll look at September's scheduled and kind of take an in-depth view at it for game number 1 of 2025. The Cowboys and the Eagles. We've mentioned this before, Alex. You don't get much more of a slugfest than this when it comes to these two fan bases and organizations.
It's their 18th time playing on Sunday Night Football on NBC since its inception in 2006. It's the Cowboys' 66th time playing on Sunday Night Football on NBC since 2006. That's the most. It's also, Chase, the first week 1 matchup between these two teams since 2000. 2000 was the last time these two long-time, intense rivals faced off in week 1. But it's different because it's the very first game of the season. So these two teams are going to spend the next 3+ months getting ready for this game when the Eagles raise a second Super Bowl championship banner in front of Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys. This matchup has a lot of flavor to it.
Oh, it is supersized at that. And you're looking at a guy like Brian Schottenheimer, who's going to make his first ever career, his coaching debut at that point, is going to be in the ruckus crowd of Philadelphia, going against the team that just won the Super Bowl. Dak Prescott coming off the injury. Now he's got George Pickens as another weapon, as well as CeeDee Lamb on the opposite side, trying to figure things out on the defensive side. Micah Parsons still there as a very elite pass rusher. The Cowboys have a lot of stuff to work with, and the Eagles are obviously bringing so much stuff back. This is the game that you would pretty much ask for if you were a National Football League fan, like obviously we are, and an SNF fan, as we are, and it's enthusiast, as we are. So, this is a pretty good one to say the least, Alex.
It is, and here's the thing. Like, I was listening to Matthew Derry, host of Locked On Lions. We have a lot of respect, love, and admiration for the Detroit Lions as Bengals fans. And he was talking about how, the NFL went with the Cowboys and maybe they should have gone with the Lions. We'll get to that matchup later on in this show. And look, were there a lot of options for this game? Yes. You mentioned the Broncos. I didn't really hear a lot of that outside of this show, but I love that pitch that you made. Get the rising star. And a team like Denver, with the NFL is better when they're good. I posed the Rams. The Commanders were an option. The aforementioned Lions were an option. But at the end of the day, the 20th season, Sunday Night Football on NBC, Cowboys, Eagles, it makes sense. And you know what? If you're tired of seeing these two teams on Sunday Night Football on NBC, fine. Don't watch it. 25 plus million people will. And most of the people listening to this podcast will, and they can understand why this game is on opening night kickoff. By the way, the NFC East is going to be on the in-season edition of Hard Knocks. That is going to be something else to watch. I mean, Chase, it's going to give us, I hope there's like a different perspective we get, because these four teams, they're in the news quite a bit. You and I both know that.
Yes, they are.
I mean, and whew, I mean, the amount of content they're going to get because of all the games that they're playing in November and December, and even to start this season. Oh my gosh, that's going to be fun. Opening night kickoff. And by the way, here's something else, Chase, to keep in mind. The Eagles are going to be going into this game and this season with a new offensive coordinator, Kevin Patullo, replacing Kellen Moore. So how's that going to impact things in Philadelphia?
Well, I mean, Jalen Hurts is pretty much used to it at this point, and with the team that they have, probably going to be okay. But yes, definitely going to be something to note, especially in the early season and of week one. But you know what, Alex? Another game that 25 plus million people, maybe even more, are going to want to watch. I mean, the last two MVPs are going to be playing the same weekend on Sunday Night Football, the season debut of actual Sunday Night Football. You got the Ravens and the Bills. I mean, NBC really got in their bag and was like, yeah, this is the 20th season. We got to make this opening weekend one to remember, and we will.
Little disappointing that it's not the Bengals. There were some what's the word I'm looking for? There were some rumblings that it could be, but you can live with this, okay? I mean, I'm all in on this matchup. By the way, did you know this is the Ravens' second straight season playing on SNF on NBC in week one on the road against the team that knocked them out of the playoffs the season prior?
Yeah, they are put up on a pedestal in a national spotlight that, hey, revenge is right there. You got to get revenge right out of the gate, because that's pretty much what's had Lamar Jackson and company fuming over the offseason. We got to get these guys back. And you know what? It's right there for the taking. And we'll see how they come out week one. This is going to be a fantastic battle to see, especially in the final season for the Bills in their current stadium before they move in 2026 to their glorious state-of-the-art facility.
That crowd is going to be absolutely electric. I mean, it's going to be early September. I mean, Bills Mafia is going to, they will have been drinking all day in the parking lot. I mean, they're just going to be ready to unleash. I don't even want to, I wonder who they're going to have lead the Let's Go Buffalo chant. And then where else would you rather be than right here, right now before kickoff? Because whoever does, they are going to be, their job is going to be pretty easy, because that crowd's going to be in full throat already. Something else to keep in mind. This is a big game for the Ravens, because when you look at their schedule to start the season, it is incredibly difficult. So Roquan Smith brought this up on NFL Network on their schedule release show 2 weeks ago. And I think it was Rich Eisen. He's like, what game are you most looking forward to? He said, oh man, it's that first one. It sets the tone for the season. Okay. You're not kidding with this matchup that it's going to set the tone for your season. If the Ravens don't win this game, they're a great regular season team, at least for the last 2 years, but if they can't beat the Bills or the Chiefs, what does that say about them?
Yeah, it's the same thing that has been said about them, that the Ravens can win games early on in the season, but they can't really win it when it matters against some of these big. And again, you put them up at the front of the schedule, so it doesn't even go to a sense of can they win those late season games. Is can he beat guys like Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes at all? Is the question.
That's a great point. And by the way, this is the second straight season. This is a Sunday Night Football and NBC matchup.
Yeah, they played each other week 4 of last year, and that game honestly was over before it even started. When the Ravens, they just came out of the gate firing. They were they were just intensely going at it against the Bills, and it was no contest.
Derrick Henry, 87-yard touchdown run on their first offensive play from scrimmage, and they basically said, "We're coming downhill, try to stop us," and the Bills could not. Give the Bills credit, though. They were a much different team against the Ravens in the playoffs.
They definitely were. They were able to, be prepared and everything else, and that is exactly what they did. But we'll look at week 2 now, and this is a fun matchup. It's an interesting one to say, but you've got these two quarterbacks that are going in a college football playoff championship game rematch from 23-24. You've got Michael Penix Jr. taking on J.J. McCarthy, the Atlanta Falcons, and the Minnesota Vikings on Sunday Night Football, week 2, September the 14th. The Falcons have obviously had a lot of buzz, and they're having a lot of buzz this offseason, especially with Michael Penix Jr. being their guy. Kirk Cousins is still on the bench. He's not reporting to any OTAs and everything else. Is that really surprising? No, it's not. But you look at the Vikings, they obviously make the quarterback move as Sam Darnold goes over to Seattle, and now J.J. McCarthy was coming off of the knee construction surgery. This is his time. He was a top 10 pick. This is his team that he's going to have to inherit that has Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkinson and Aaron Jones and a bunch of other players on this offense that are really good. And people talk about, J.J. McCarthy pretty much handed the football off in Michigan. You saw a flash in the preseason game he played last year. This is going to be some big-time football for him to play starting off, especially in a secondary that he's going to have to face against A.J. Terrell and Jesse Bates roaming around and, a pass rush in Atlanta, which was really no joke to say.
It was not. And that Atlanta defense, to me, they have some players that make it underrated. You can't overlook them. But I've had conversations with Vikings fans each of the last 2 days leading up to today, and I kept saying to them, you're going to find out really quickly about J.J. McCarthy and this team because they are in the national spotlight each of the first 5 weeks of the regular season. We are really going to see just what this team looks like. And you mentioned the skill players that he has. Look at the Falcons skill players. I mean, the skill talent in this game is tremendous. I mean, you mentioned the Vikings. Atlanta's got Bijan Robinson, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Darnell Mooney. I mean, my goodness, that is an offense that is going. I mean, this is a fun matchup. These two teams, they're both teams that have never won the Super Bowl. Whenever these two teams get together, I always think about the 1998 NFC Championship game called by the late great Pat Summerall and the late great John Madden on Fox when the Falcons beat the Vikings in the Metrodome to go to the Super Bowl. I know that. Well, I mean, I know that, but I remember it, and it holds dear memories to me because I was born in Atlanta in November of 98, and that game was played in January of 99. But the other thing I think about, Chase, is, and I was thinking about this, you look at these teams in the NFC South and the AFC South, like those two divisions are probably the two weakest divisions in the NFL. So what happens when the Falcons go up to NFC North territory and face a big physical team like the Vikings with all that skill talent? How do they respond? That's what I'm going to be looking for in this game.
It's going to be fun to see how that all plays out, and we'll take a push to week 3 as Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs will get their first appearance on NBC of the season as they take on the New York Giants and Russell Wilson, presumably. And this is going to be an interesting game, obviously, with it being Mahomes versus Russell Wilson. But that Giants pass rush, they make life hell. And Patrick Mahomes, to say the least, did not have a good Super Bowl at all and was going up against a tough Philadelphia Eagles pass rush unit. The Giants did not have a great season last year. They were not good. They, obviously drafted a lot of young players. They have, they really do. They drafted some studs this year, I will say. I know, obviously, the pick of Jackson Dart is in question. We'll see how that plays out in the long run. But, I mean, Abdul Carter, Cam Scatterboo in the later rounds. Like, this is going to be an interesting Giants team, especially in the early portion of things. And I'm excited to see what this pass rush can do against the Chiefs and maybe try to make things ugly.
You look at the Chiefs' first 6 games to start this season. 4 of them are in prime time, 2 others at 4:25, 1 on Fox, 1 on CBS. And you look at the pass rushes they're going to face. the Chargers, the Eagles, the Giants, the Ravens, the Jaguars even, and then the Lions. I mean, Chase, we're going to find out about this Chiefs offensive line very, very quickly. And this is a game, I know the Giants, we may not think are going to be a playoff team this year. They're certainly going to give you 60 minutes of hell, as you just said. I mean, we saw it last year with the Bengals, Dexter Lawrence and Kayvon Thibodeau, and now Abdul Carter. I mean, for as arrogant as he may come across with that whole requesting to wear Lawrence Taylor's number, Penn State has produced a boatload of pass rushers over the years, and Abdul Carter could be the next. So this is going to be a very tall order for the Chiefs to go into New York a week after playing Philadelphia and not too long after they go to Brazil. I mean, they are being put through the ringer early, coming off a Super Bowl loss. But this next matchup, Chase, is a classic.
This is what if John Madden was still, alive. Obviously, rest in peace to him. But this is a John Madden matchup, man. This is about as classic as it gets with the Packers and the Cowboys playing Week 4 Sunday Night Football. An all-American matchup, if you would. I would love to be, eating burger, fries at Applebee's and seeing these two teams, Jordan Love and Dak Prescott, going at it. So what a matchup this is in September.
Yeah. Just get a Texas brisket burger, some French fries, and maybe some cheese curds, and, you're good to go there. Did you know, though, Chase, that the Cowboys have not beaten the Packers at home since 2007?
Wow. That's revving the engines up right there. And that was at a game where Aaron Rodgers had an appearance.
Yes. Brett Favre got hurt in that game. And that game was played at the old Texas Stadium.
Yeah. Wasn't that was Bob Papa, Chris Collinsworth on the call for that as well.
It was a Thursday night game on NFL Network.
Week after
was that Bob Papa or was that Brian Gumbel?
Okay, that actually could have been Brian Gumbel. Again,
it was one of the two, which is interesting because Bob Papa is the radio voice, or was at least, I don't know if he still is, of the New York Giants.
Yeah, but again, CC was on the call for that game. So that's actually a really interesting history note right there, Alex. He was in attendance the last time the Cowboys won against the Packers at home, and the Packers have been perfect in Jerry's World, AT&T Stadium, since at least 2009. So,
and they also have a ring in Jerry World for that matter.
They do, one more than Dallas does. But
John Madden was at that game, by the way. This was 2 years after he retired. He called his last game, which was Super Bowl 43. It's their first SNF matchup, Green Bay and Dallas, in nearly 15 seasons. My question for this game, my overriding question for this game is, and we'll talk about this a lot, obviously, throughout this offseason and leading up to this game, will Jordan Love climb to the next tier of quarterbacks? That's something that's a prevailing storyline, I think, going into this season, let alone this game.
He is a great talent, and he is very gifted, but also pretty inconsistent. So I'm excited to see what Jordan Love can do and see if he can refine some of those skills and
last time in Jerry World, he had a pretty good performance.
He had a pretty flawless performance, to say the least, and Dallas fans do not want to remember that. And I'm going to mention this as we roll to October. You've been on that Patriots train for a bit, and they picked up a guy at the station named Stephon Diggs, and that track is going to be going through Buffalo, and they're going to be playing on Sunday Night Football. This is going to be interesting, okay? Because Stephon Diggs is a very polarizing athlete. He's a very talented athlete, to say the least, and he's coming off the ACL injury, so it's going to be, we're going to monitor how he performs off of that. But Drake May gets the spotlight early October against the reigning MVP, the Rowdy Buffalo Crowd. It's an AFC East matchup, one that, in the past, you see the nationally televised games that these teams would play sometimes, and they would all be in New England. Now the script is flipped, and they're really getting to play a main Sunday night marquee matchup in Buffalo. I know they played Monday Night Football a couple of years back, and then the playoff game where the Bills were literally perfect. But this is early season October football, and the Patriots are going to have their hands full.
They are going to have their hands full. It's a measuring stick game for them, which, as you said, used to be that way for the Bills when they would face the Patriots. It's the first time for me that the Patriots have a legitimate chance to be at the Bills' caliber since 2021, when Josh Allen and the Bills absolutely squashed Bill Belichick and the Patriots in that playoff game. The great thing for you and me is, so the Bengals host the Lions at 4:25 that day.
Yeah.
And because we both live downtown in Cincinnati, literally we can sprint back to our apartments for this game.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, hopefully after a Bengals win, because, I mean, think about this. Calendar shift into October. Weather's still warm. Maybe it's a little chilly. I mean, this is going to be, the Bills play the Ravens, Dolphins, and Patriots in 3 of their first 4 home games of the regular season in primetime. That crowd is going to be alive and rocking for this game.
I'd say peak television viewing, but you also know what's peak television viewing the next week. You got Lions Chiefs.
Oh, yes.
Oh my gosh. The rematch of the 2023 season opener where the Lions came in and stunned Kansas City after they dropped another banner. And this could have been a Super Bowl matchup the last 2 seasons.
26-7, the Lions are since that game on opening night kickoff in 2023. It very well could have been a Super Bowl matchup. Both teams were a 1 seed last year. The Lions were 30 minutes away from playing the Chiefs in Super Bowl 58 in 2023. The thing about this matchup for me is I think the Lions are the better team.
I would say so. I mean, I think the Lions and the Eagles, and obviously that's a matchup that we'll talk about in a little bit. But the Lions, depth-wise, I mean, they're one of the deepest teams, top to bottom, in the National Football League. I mean, there might be maybe one other team, Philadelphia, that might be deeper than them, but I don't know. This is a great football team that they have on their roster.
The Lions have 12 games not at 1 o'clock on a Sunday this year of the 16 that are scheduled. That is incredible.
Yeah,
12 of their 16.
Every road game they play is not 1 o'clock. Like they have no.
That's amazing.
They have no road 1 o'clock games. Like they will be in national television viewing the entire season on the road, to say the least. That's a chopping block moment right there.
Well, then, I mean, their schedule's absolutely it's pretty loaded, as we have seen, and this matchup, like, you could have put this anywhere, but the fact that it's on Sunday Night Football on NBC, and here's the thing. We hear all the time about the Lions. Can they go outdoors and win? Well, early October, mid-October, Kansas City shouldn't be too bad weather-wise. So if all goes their way, they can win this game, and quite frankly, should win this game. And speaking of the Super Bowl, we head to the site of Super Bowl 60 on NBC the next week.
Yeah. And all I'm going to say is, obviously, other than the matchup, it's the Atlanta Falcons, who are going to make their second SNF appearance in the first 7 weeks of the season against the San Francisco 49ers, who are usually a mainstay on NBC over the last few years. And the one word or person I'll say, and you can obviously attest to this, Kyle Shanahan.
Well, I definitely can. And what was interesting to me this week, leading up to this show, I realized that Kyle Shanahan is 1-2 against the Falcons since becoming the 49ers head coach.
I mean,
so this, I mean, let's be honest. It's so interesting how he's the head coach of the Niners, Raheem Morris, the head coach of the Falcons. And Shanahan and Morris had these matchups, these epic battles for years in the NFC West. It's the first SNF on NBC game this season at the site of Super Bowl 60. It's 2 shades of red. It's, it's East Coast versus West Coast. And, I mean, I think the last time these two teams played on primetime was Week 16, 2023. On Monday Night Football, when Navarro Bowman picked 6th, and it was not Matt Ryan because he was hurt that year. He played only like 5 games. I forget who the Falcons' backup quarterback was. So Navarro Bowman ended that game with a pick 6. On the call for that game, Chase, none other than Mike Tirico, along with the great John Gruden.
Yep, and it
Salters
closed out Candlestick Park, and a great way. So that'll be a fun matchup to see, especially how the Niners come out and how they look in the first 6 weeks, and then seeing the Falcons on NBC for the second time. And then we roll into week 8.
I know, real quick, don't mean to cut you off there. Atlanta's going to be on a short week traveling west because they play on Monday Night Football against Buffalo the week prior. So that is going to be interesting to see how that factors in. But back to what you were mentioning, because I look at this next game and woo-hoo-hoo, man, if we get what we hope for, this could be a very momentous matchup.
We know one quarterback who will more than likely be playing in this game, but we don't know the other quarterback. It's the Packers and the Steelers. Wow. I mean, think about this, though. I don't want to give Aaron Rodgers the amount of, present day credit as the stuff that's going to be portraying for the future, because Aaron Rodgers is one of, if not the most talented quarterback ever in the National Football League when we're talking about just talent-wise, okay? But Aaron Rodgers hasn't signed a contract anywhere. If he plays for the Steelers, all right, his first game of the season, he's going to New York after everything that happened. And that's an Iron Eagle game. But then you're looking at this where he could play against his former team, the Green Bay Packers, on Sunday Night Football, if that's the case. But even if that's not the case, it's still a really good matchup, a historic matchup of teams that have won 5+ Super Bowls on NBC. The last time they played each other in Pittsburgh, it was Brett Hundley versus Ben Roethlisberger, and that turned out to be cinema.
Yeah, it did. I mean, Antonio Brown with that toe drag swag.
There we go. Yep.
There we go. Toe drag swag. And then Chris Boswell with a game-winning 53-yard field goal. One of 3 consecutive games he made a game-winning field goal, including one here in Cincinnati. I was at that game.
Yeah.
Okay, let's say Aaron Rodgers does play with the Steelers. You're talking about him joining forces with the head coach his Packers beat in Super Bowl 45, which was the only Super Bowl Rodgers played in with the Packers and in his career, and the last Super Bowl Mike Tomlin has coached in. So there's that. And Rodgers and Tomlin are going to face the Packers. Just some script you can't just write. But this one, if everything just falls into place, and let's not overlook it. These two teams have won 10 combined Super Bowls. 10. This matchup, there were rumblings that this could be the Dublin game, and I was like, no. This matchup deserves to be on Sunday Night Football on NBC. It's Green Bay, it's Pittsburgh. When you see the G and the Steelers logo, you know exactly what those two logos and teams and organizations represent.
Yeah, and that's a great way to segue into the next one, because these two logos together on SNF, I don't know how to portray it, but I like it. Seattle and Washington, not the city, obviously Seattle, Washington, but Seattle's coming to Washington, D.C. to take on the Commanders on Week 9 Sunday Night Football. And the Seahawks, they have really been overlooked because, they missed the playoffs, but they won 10 games last year. They're going to have Sam Darnold as their quarterback. And then this is the first time we're going to see Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders on NBC. This is going to be very fun to see these young guys go at it. And I'm not talking about, the quarterbacks, obviously Jaden Daniels being in the second year, but this is just going to be fun. These are two young rosters that have a lot of excitement, and Dan Quinn versus Mike McDonald. This is going to be, a main dish of Week 9 to say in the center point of the season.
Dan Quinn facing his former team that he was the defensive coordinator for prior to when he went to Atlanta. I don't know about you, but I am so happy the Commanders are back in the national spotlight with this branding that they have. We said it back during the playoffs that they've become a wellness center for players like Bobby Wagner and Zach Ertz and Austin Eckler, and then Dan Quinn, Cliff Kingsbury. You look at all the people that came to the Commanders last year to rebrand themselves and revive their careers, and along the way, the organization does too. The Commanders are playing in primetime 5 times. They're playing on Christmas. They have a bunch of other 425 and national appearances this season. I mean, here's the thing. When a team like the Commanders are good, yeah, they're going to get the benefit of the doubt from the NFL because they're a historic franchise. They won 3 Super Bowls in a 10-year span. So, and Jaden Daniels may be, and not maybe, he is the quarterback that can get them back there because they were this close last year. Speaking of Sunday Night Football and the Eras Tour, this matchup may be heavily discussed on those shows.
Yeah, and we'll get you more into that once we get to the conclusion of the show on what we mean by that. Week 10, reoccurring SNF game that Alex mentioned, more of an Al Michaels game, but NBC is like, you know what? We'll take this one. You got the Steelers and the Chargers. Always fun when these two teams play, regardless of what city it's in.
Always fun because the color schemes are so unique. I mean, this game in particular, it's going to be the Steelers white jerseys, gold pants. It's going to be the Chargers powder blue jerseys. They could wear their gold pants. They could wear white, but either way, that's going to be a good color scheme to see. And here's the thing, too. All 5 previous matchups on Sunday Night Football on NBC between these two teams, a lot of them, I should say, have been really high scoring. 38-28 Pittsburgh over San Diego back in 2009. 2018, it was the Chargers, the LA Chargers, 33-30 over Pittsburgh. 2021, it was 41-37 Chargers over the Steelers. So if Aaron Rodgers plays for the Steelers this season, we could see some fireworks in this game.
Going to be a fun matchup out west. And, you know, I know that Drewski has this thing called Could Have Been Records. NBC Week 11 has the Could Have Been NFC title game. You've got Lions.
Oh, my gosh.
Okay. That, I mean, I don't know what else to really say about that game. That's just going to be, honestly,
November 16th.
November 16th, the two best rosters in the National Football League. I'll say it point blank.
I agree with you so much so that I said, where does this game get decided? I genuinely don't know. Where is this game won?
You know where it's won, Alex? You know where it might be won? The injury report.
You know what? It could be. By the way, such good news out of Allen Park, Michigan this week. Aiden Hutchinson fully cleared. That is incredible news. I don't know if you know this. He was on pace last year for 25.5 sacks when he got hurt.
He was on a tear. He was on a tear in the early portion. It was unbelievable.
I mean, you get him back. He can mask a lot of deficiencies on that defense.
Mm-hmm.
And here's my question, though, for this game. Can the Lions win an outdoor game in this environment? Because I'm telling you right now, Philadelphia, I mean, that stadium is going to be electric. I mean, yeah. I mean, a primetime game in Philadelphia, middle of November, good luck.
They're going to have to play the team, which has already won the Super Bowl this past year. The conditions, which Detroit hasn't really fared too well against in the past, or Jared Goff in that regard. And not playing against the fans, but again, like you said, the environment. It's gonna
also be snow when Calvin Johnson's getting snow in his face mask. I think they'll be okay.
I think they'll be fine at that rate, as it should be, you know, one of the best games in the entire 2025 season. And then we move to week 12. Okay, so I'm glad. Yeah, it's a fun one. I'm glad the Bucs are getting that primetime love as they so deserve. And then the Rams are also getting that look as well. I love how this is a matchup because Baker Mayfield and Matthew Stafford, I feel like, are just two of the last true gunslingers in the National Football League. Well, they'll just let it, like, obviously as a quarterback, you know, your primary job is, you know, you got to take control of the offense, be able to throw the football, lead drives down the field, and, you know, keep guys in check, composure, knowing the offense. But then sometimes you just got to step in and just rip it, you know? And these two guys in Baker Mayfield and Matthew Stafford on so many platforms and everything else, different arm angles and situations, tight pockets, stepping up, rolling out, in between defenders. These guys throw some absolute lasers. And that's all you're going to see on November 23rd.
It's all you're going to see. I mean, you look at the skill talent that both quarterbacks have. Tampa Bay's got Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Emeka Ibuka, now plus Bucky Irving, their running back. He's really good. And then you look at the Rams, Puka Nacua, Kyron Williams, and their defensive front. I mean, there is a lot of talent in this game. And what I'll say is, we're going to see Lions-Eagles the week prior, and those are probably the two best teams in the NFC. Do not underestimate the Buccaneers and the Rams because – and by the way, the last time they played on Sunday Night Football on NBC, I think that game was pretty good, if I remember.
I think it was so good. It was a playoff game, and the ending was, just go watch it.
Yeah. I mean, if you're ever just sitting around on a Sunday night with, and you're bored and, it's 90 degrees outside. Yeah. Just turn on that game. And by the way, speaking of hot, it was 55 degrees in Tampa that day. The officials were wearing long sleeves. So the uniqueness of that game, the sun was out shining at kickoff. And then by the end of the game, it was dark and, now the scene shifts to SoFi Stadium. I feel like it's become a rite of passage. There's a Sunday night game in SoFi Stadium the Sunday before Thanksgiving. Speaking of Thanksgiving, do you see what team is on the John Madden Thanksgiving celebration?
Oh, I saw what team that we support and the other team that we completely do not support. So it's a rivalry game. You got Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson, two guys that, I mean, what performances that those guys put together in 2024 overall and against each other. I mean, it was unbelievable what they were able to do. The Ravens beat the Bengals 41-38 in overtime, and then they beat the Bengals. Was it 35-34? The numbers start running the way.
Well, to illustrate just how good these two games were last year, these two teams combined for 20 touchdowns in two games last year. Okay? Of those 20 touchdowns, 13 came in the second half, combined in both games. And by the way, Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson in the second half of both games, Burrow threw for 3 touchdowns in the second half of both games. Lamar Jackson threw for 3 touchdowns in the second half of both games. And then in the fourth quarter alone in those games, they were outstanding. So, I mean, on a short week, and those two teams know each other so well. But yeah, it might come down to who has the ball last.
A matchup last year that was a combined score between two games, 76-72. Call that college basketball if you would, a little March Madness on Thanksgiving night. And that capped off one of the greatest, at least we're on the schedule release, one of the greatest Thanksgiving slates that we've ever seen on a schedule release drop because, oh my gosh, that is unbelievable. That is unbelievable.
Mike North called it the filet mignons, or taking the Ferrari out of the garage.
I think it's time. Take it out for a spin. Why not? And they're doing that.
Chiefs Cowboys at 4:30 on Thanksgiving. Yeah, that I don't even want to know how many views that game's going to get.
So think about this. Think about this, Alex. You're taking the Ferrari for a spin on Thanksgiving and, using up all the gas. You got these great matchups, but then you let the young guys get the rest of the stuff a couple of days later on Sunday Night Football. Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels. This is going to be a hell of a matchup.
Staying in the Beltway too, from Baltimore on Thursday to Washington on Sunday. No, whenever these two teams, when these two teams are good, the NFL is better for it. This is going to be a terrific matchup.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. The Broncos did a lot in the offseason when it came to signing some guys on defense and drafting really well. I'm excited to see. I don't know what they're going to do with him, but Sean Payton has had high praise for R.J. Harvey, the running back from UCF. I'm excited to see what they do with him in the offense.
R.J. Harvey, I'm thinking of somebody else who went to Sydney High School. I'm thinking of Isaiah Bowser.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that could be interesting. And I think another thing that I think about with this game is, does Jaden Daniels get bothered by the Broncos pass rush? Because as we saw last year when they came to Cincinnati, that pass rush is real. I mean, you got Zach Allen, you've got Jonathan Cooper. You've got Nick Benito coming up the middle, and then by the way, you're throwing into a secondary that has the reigning defensive player of the year in Patrick Surtain, so he'll probably go up against Terry McLaurin. How about that for a matchup?
Shoo, yeah.
Needless to say, this matchup has a lot of talent in it. And now we go to, as you said on the schedule release show, Middle America.
Yeah, and also another guy in the back end that Denver's got, Talona Hufanga. I'm excited to see him get back to full strength. Push it to Middle America, okay? And this was a matchup that we saw midday, at 1 o'clock.
Getting ready for Ohio State's demolishing of Tennessee.
And that was always a good sign. That was a great run for them. But you had Houston and Kansas City. This game gets the call up from midday NBC to Sunday Night Football, gets the call out of the bullpen. So this should be a fun one. We'll see CJ Stroud and Joe Mixon, Nico Collins and the gang, D'Amico Ryans and Houston take on Kansas City as they get another home Sunday Night Football game.
They do, and I honestly think similar to the Lions, although the Lions are on a much higher level than the Texans. The Texans, I was kind of down on them when they lost Laramie Tunsil this offseason to free agency. Their draft was so good. I loved how active they were. They were trading up. They were trading down. They drafted Jalen Higgins, a receiver out of Iowa State. If those receivers stay healthy, CJ Stroud is going to have a bounce back year. And he had a good season last year, but not as good as we thought he could. So this is a game the Texans know they can win. It's a measuring stick game for them. And we've seen this matchup on SNF on NBC before, multiple times, if I recall.
Multiple times in multiple locations. There's only two of them, obviously. But, this is nothing new for NBC to have this matchup on. And I'm going to tell you this. We're going to roll to week 15. This is a game that was also seen multiple times in the multiple two locations, Minnesota and Dallas. And the last time that Minnesota played in Dallas on SNF was the infamous Dak Prescott hip workout that got a lot of salsa music going on in Chris Collinsworth Raven.
Yeah, and then they took the ball out of his hands in the fourth quarter, which allowed the Vikings to win the game. By the way, quick side note. Well, actually, this does relate a little bit to these two matchups, Texans, Chiefs, and Vikings, Cowboys. Did you know the Chiefs originally were the Dallas Texans in the old AFL?
I like the tie-in right there, Alex. I like it.
And Vikings, Cowboys, this matchup has some history. You go back to the 70s when those two teams with Roger Staubach and Fran Tarkenton and all the great receivers that both teams have had over the years. And I'm so glad that NBC put this game, mid-December, Sunday Night Football. I think what's interesting, a lot of Bengals fans have been complaining about only one home primetime game out of 4 total this season. Minnesota's in that same boat. Tampa Bay's in that same boat. So, Tampa Bay's won a Super Bowl, and they've gotten, when Brady was there, at least they were getting respect from the NFL with their schedule. Minnesota gets a lot of primetime games because of their history and their name brand and their wide-ranging fan base. So, understand that, specifically for the Bengals, you got to earn your stripes a little bit. You only went 3-5 at home last year. I know that's a side note, but Vikings, Cowboys, like J.J. McCarthy going into Jerry World, going up against Micah Parsons. I think another thing that's going to be interesting is, where are the Cowboys by this time of year? Where are they?
Ooh. Yeah, that's going to be a big question because, it was like an off and on theme for the Cowboys really once over the last 10 years. It's been every other year kind of for them. Obviously, I know they had 3 straight years when they made the playoffs, but it really balanced out to about every other year where it was, okay, they're good. Okay, they missed the playoffs. Okay, they're good. Okay, they missed the playoffs. So now they're under new coach Brian Schottenheimer. We'll finally get a chance to see what that team looks like. What do we expect? Is Dak Prescott still healthy? How are the receivers holding up? Micah Parsons still having a huge impact, everything else. So this will be fun. And then with Minnesota, you'll be closing out the regular season and the first regular season for J.J. McCarthy. So that'll be an interesting thing to monitor over time. How does the offense look? Are they more run heavy? Is J.J. McCarthy airing the ball out a little bit more? Kevin O'Connell he's one of the greatest minds in the game of football at the moment. So, very fun to see there. And talking about Bengals fans and the Bengals in general,
real quick, when you think about Vikings Cowboys, a name or a person you're going to see a lot of during this game, Steve Kornacki with his playoff percentages and predictions, especially wherever these two teams, because I feel like these two teams are going to be like in the wild card race. I don't know about the thick of it, but you'll definitely see a lot of Steve Kornacki in this game. So roll up your sleeves and enjoy it.
Yeah, you'll see a lot of Steve Kornacki that week. The following week, on December the 21st, you'll see a lot of Steve Kornacki for Bengals Dolphins, which will be week 16 SNF. So the Bengals go down to Vice City, and you have two class of 2020 quarterbacks. You had the whole Burrow Tua debate back then before Tua got hurt and Burrow won a national championship, and the great LSU Bama game that was played with all of the National Football League players that were, in college uniforms. But it's two 2020 quarterbacks, an explosive year for not great reasons in this world, but they're also playing with explosives on the outside, two receivers to say the least, in T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, and Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill on their respective sides.
The color scheme for this game could be tremendous. Like, let's say the Bengals go white, orange, and the Dolphins go their aqua jerseys with white pants. I mean, wow. Or the Bengals could go with their black jerseys, white pants, orange stripes, and the Dolphins go with their, white jerseys, green pants, maybe. I mean,
it's also the time of the year where the Dolphins could wear their throwback uniforms as well.
Oh yeah, that could be fun too. That could be really fun. And in that case, I hope the Bengals go like white, orange, not white, black. That's not for Miami, I don't think. Here's two interesting things about this matchup. One is that Burrow and Tua have not played a full game in the NFL against each other, if you can believe that. And number two, this is the fifth primetime matchup between these two teams since 2004.
Wow.
They played on Sunday Night Football on ESPN back in 2004 in Cincinnati. It was Carson Palmer's first home regular season start as the Bengals quarterback. There was a terrific montage leading into the open of the broadcast. Pat Summerall, the late great Pat Summerall, filled in for the late great Mike Patrick, as Mike Patrick was recovering from it was some heart surgery. I forget exactly what it was.
Yeah.
So he filled in for that season. He called that game with Joe Theismann and Paul McGuire. So interesting there. They played on Thursday Night Football in 2013. We don't have to talk about how that game ended.
Nope.
It was Halloween night. They played on Thursday Night Football in 2016, the Bengals' debut of their white Bengal jerseys, color rush jerseys, not the white helmets. That didn't come until Thursday Night Football in 2022.
Yeah. So that's actually crazy when you think about it. So you had 3 straight Thursday Night Football games between those two teams when it comes to the primetime world. And
let's not forget, too, that this matchup is being played 6 years and almost 6 years to the date that the Bengals lost to Miami to clinch the number 1 overall pick, which gave the Bengals Joe Burrow. So it is not lost on me the timing of this game.
Thank you, Miami. And another thing, thank you, scheduled release people, Mike North in particular, that this will be 17 years to the day of my SNF streak. So
there is that too.
Giants. So that'll be a memento thing. Maybe I'll be down there. We'll see. Maybe you'll be down there. I don't know.
I may be, actually. Like, my family has had discussions about this.
And we'll have discussions as time goes on. But
then
the Peacock
be on site for the show during that week.
Yeah,
so we could both be on site.
Yeah, we could be. But I'll tell you this, the Peacock exclusive, we don't know what site. We don't know. We have no idea.
What's your guess? Like, of the 5 games that we don't that aren't scheduled yet for that week, what's your guess for that game?
I mean, the easy one would be Ravens Packers, but I could also see that being literally the Sunday Night Football game if this next one, the Bears and the Niners, ends up.
This is interesting.
Yeah.
It's honestly one of my favorite matchups on the schedule. It's a throwback to the Smash Mouth of the 80s. I mean, when I mention these names, Chase, you're going to get goosebumps, and you're going to feel like you're going to feel like a linebacker is going to come and hit you. Mike Singletary, Ron Rivera, Ronnie Lott. I mean, and then I can go to the star players, not to mention Walter Payton and Joe Montana and Roger Craig and Dwight Clark, God rest his soul. Jerry Rice, you may have heard of him. Yeah, not to mention the head coaches, Iron Mike Ditka and the late great Bill Walsh.
Yeah, these are some great players that were in that matchup. But then I think the biggest question for me is who flipped the script? I feel like one of these teams will have flipped the script by that point because both of these teams didn't make the playoffs this previous season. And you got Caleb Williams in year 2 under Ben Johnson, and then you've got Kyle Shanahan in the first year of Brock Purdy with a big contract. So who was able to flip the script if this game is still week 17? Maybe both teams are able to flip the script and they're playing for their respective divisions or wild card matchups. Steve Kornacki will obviously have a big part
he will.
one way or another in this matchup or whatever week 17 game that is. But I'm excited for this game. This should be a fun one.
I have this vision that like both teams are 9-6 going into this game, and the winner continues on the inside track to the playoffs, and the loser is automatically eliminated. Is Steve Kornacki will have a field day with this game. Not to mention, it's two of the brightest offensive minds in the NFL, Ben Johnson versus Kyle Shanahan. I think another underrated storyline this season around the NFL. Guess who's back in San Francisco coordinating the defense? By the way, still has Nick Bosa and Fred Warner on it. Robert Saleh. All I'm going to tell you is discount the 49ers at your own risk. Have you seen the 49ers schedule and how easy it is?
Yeah, we're 4th place scheduled, and they've got some first place caliber players on their team. The Niners, they very well could be back this season.
Well, let me tell you, okay, Colin Cowherd brought this up on his show the week of schedule release. Here are the quarterbacks the Niners don't play this season. Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Jalen Hurts. They don't play any of those 6 quarterbacks. Not to mention they don't play Jared Goff either.
Yeah, that's
who's the best quarterback they play? Matthew
Stafford,
who they're familiar with.
Yeah,
I mean that
it looks pretty good for San Francisco, and we'll see how things play out with them. But we'll obviously have enough more time to talk about everybody else this entire offseason. We're 100 days away from kickoff, and we're gonna be having you guys covered over the course of the offseason. But again,
can I divert a little bit here, Chase? I want to give a shout out. You're wearing the sweatshirt. Let's give a shout out to head coach Jordan Bishel and Bearcats baseball.
Oh, yeah.
Going to the NCAA tournament for the first time as an at-large bid since 1974. How long ago was that? Well, Richard Nixon was still trying to convince the country that he was not a crook and that he could claim executive privilege in the infamous Watergate scandal. But let's give it up for Bearcats baseball. Friday, 1 o'clock on ESPN Plus against Wake Forest in the Knoxville Regional. I'll tell you, a lot of area teams making the NCAA tournament. Miami, Ohio in that same Knoxville Regional. Kentucky, 3rd straight season in the NCAA tournament. They're heading to the Clemson Regional. They'll take on West Virginia. How about that for a little rivalry? Kentucky, West Virginia.
Yeah, I mean, if you're watching college baseball, well, if you're not watching college baseball, you should. If you're watching college baseball, thanks for sticking around. So this is going to be fun to watch, this entire weekend of stuff.
Well, we hope you stuck around because I think we have something about an Eras tour coming up.
We do. So basically throughout these breaks of SNF, these time frames that are going on, again, I'll be the first guy to say that I'm not an avid Taylor Swift fan, but obviously we'll see Travis Kelce on SNF a few times. We've seen him on there a lot. This isn't the point. We're going to break things up and we're going to talk about the history of Sunday Night Football throughout the month of June, and we'll have a whole list broken down for you guys on the next episode. This is going to be really fun to talk about, whether it comes to the broadcasters, it comes to the graphics packages, the music, the matchups, the players, the moments, everything else. The entire month of June, we're going to be going down memory lane, and we're going to take a look at these eras. It's a tour throughout the mind and everything else possible. So this is going to be really fun to do with 2 SNF enthusiast aficionados, if you will.
We rented the Madden Cruiser and converted it into a tour bus, the Eras tour bus. We've rented the Madden Cruiser for this. So that'll be fun to if only we could do that. If only we could sit in the Madden Cruiser and record those shows.
Well, you just got to close your eyes figuratively and just think about it figuratively. But With that being said, I'm going to go think about a sandwich, and I'm going to go eat a sandwich.
I've got a sandwich from Milano's coming. By the time you're listening to this, it is Wednesday morning, May 20th. Happy birthday to my cousin Ryan and Karen. So hopefully the Knicks Pacer series is even by the time you're listening to this, and this sandwich will be from Milano's. Have you ever been to Milano's? You're a dating guy. You've been to
I've
Milano's?
not been to Milano's, no. I've
never
not
been to Milano's, so well, I've got some work to do then. Okay.
Well, there we go. With that being said, that's Alex Frank, and I'm Chase Younts, and we'll see you guys next time here on the Waiting All Day for Sunday Night